Hotep, everybody. Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. It is Sunday, December 17th, 2023, and we are live. Welcome to the African History Network show. It's been a few weeks since I broadcasted live on Sunday night for the African History Network show, but we're back. I was on 9:10 a.m. Superstation WFDF, and they made a format change. So none of the hosts are on the radio station anymore. They switched to conservative talk radio. So, but this is fine with me because I can broadcast whenever I want to. So here is a story that I have been wanting to talk about for a couple of months now. And I've posted some articles dealing with this, but we're going to deal with it today. Hundreds of Black Florida churches are now teaching courses on Black history in response to the Florida Department of Education's new social studies standards and policies from Governor Ron DeSantis. All right, so this is a program called Faith in Florida, and I've seen a number of different articles dealing with this, okay? And I saw a piece from NBCnews.com, NBC News Now. It was a video from NBC News Now. And they interviewed Pastor Alphonso Jackson of New Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church in Miami, Florida. Okay. So when you research this story, you may see information and you may see the name of this pastor and other pastors also. You'll probably see that information come up. So we're going to talk about this on today's show when I guest hosted Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday, December 15th. This was one of the stories that I wanted to deal with. And Roland's producer reached out to a couple of people involved in Faith in Florida, but we weren't able to get a response in time for the show. All right, so let's look at this here. Hundreds of Black churches are teaching courses on Black history. Now, some churches in Florida are now offering Black history lessons to their congregation in response to the state of Florida's restrictions on education. In July of 2023, we all know that Governor Ron DeSantis backed the Florida Department of Education's ruling to reject an African American studies course for its high school advanced placement curriculum. Since then, there have been several laws regulating how educators should teach African American history in public schools and state colleges in the state of Florida. Now, African American churches are fighting back by using their own toolkits to provide their flock with unfiltered information about African American history. Pastor Alphonso Jackson Jr. of New Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church in Miami shared his thoughts about Florida's controversial standards on education with NBC News. Pastor Alphonso Jackson Jr. said, quote, "My initial reaction was disbelief. Initial reaction was disbelief, and then it turned to anger. Like other religious leaders, Pastor Alphonso Johnson Jr. Pastor Alphonso Jackson Jr. turned to the internet to find the best alternative for his congregation. He then discovered an online toolkit created by an organization called Faith in Florida, which gives churches the resources they need to counter the state standards. Pastor Johnson said, "It's up to us to be able to write our own story and to tell the truth, Now, there was a good article from Blavity.com on this topic as well. And I want to go to the article from Blavity. The name of the piece from Blavity is some churches in Florida. Let's flip over to this here. Some churches in Florida are offering Black history lessons in response to state restrictions. Some churches in Florida are offering Black history lessons in response to state restrictions. Okay. And if we look at the Pastor Alphonso Jackson Jr. quoted, and I think they misspelled his name because they refer to him as Johnson. And let's see here. Let me flip over to, I watched the story from NBC News also. And I've seen a number of different stories on this topic. Let me double check something here. Okay, yeah, Priscilla Thompson reported for NBC News Now on this topic. All right, let's continue here. So now, Pastor Sharon Riley of Agape Perfecting Praise and Worship Center in Orlando also used the same online toolkit to teach Black history lessons. Now, this toolkit consists of 11 lessons. It is not a curriculum, but it is a guide. It's not a curriculum, but it is a guide. And I'll show you the guide on their website, the Faith in Florida website. And there's numerous books that they recommend to read also. Pastor Sharon Riley said, because we have families who have students who are registered in our public school system, we know that there are certain pieces of information relevant to our history that are not going to be taught. Okay, she said this to WMFE, Orlando's national public radio station. Now, the Florida pastor's goal is to educate their members, specifically the children, by using the toolkits to teach them everything they should know about Black history. Pastor Riley said, well, the church is going to always be an educational institution, period. We teach people how to live their lives, how to raise their families, how to plan for their future. We teach, that's what we do. Okay, so check out this piece here from Blavity.com. Some churches in Florida are offering history lessons in response to state restrictions. And this is dealing with the Florida Department of Education and Governor Ron DeSantis policies. Now, this is something that I said some months ago needed to happen. Okay. And when I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered, and when I talked about this on the African History Network show, I said that, yes, we need to push the Florida Department of Education to have these, to teach the correct history. But at the same time, our organizations and our communities also need to have classes where we teach this history. Our churches, fraternal organizations, sororities, different community programs, etc. And you look at the Jewish community, they have cultural programs where their children learn their culture on Saturdays. And, you know, we need to have things like this in our community. It should not have taken something like this in Florida for us to realize that we needed to do this. Okay, we should have been doing this all along. Now, here is a flyer from Faith in Florida, also from their website. Let's let me see. Let's go to this one here. Well, this is something that another church is doing. The Friendship Church and Dr. Richard Williams II. Okay. And this is a Zoom link. It's a Zoom class that they have. And this is on Wednesdays. Okay. Let's go to this one here. I want to go to this next article also. All right. Now, at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church in Fort Pierce, Pastor Kenneth Johnson said he's taking action. He said it's not about religion. It's not about the church. This is a matter of presenting history as history has occurred. This is a matter of presenting history as history has occurred. All right, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a heart on this broadcast. Okay, let's continue. He said his congregation is learning Black history through hour-long video classes at the church. He said, we are spearheading an effort to educate people. Now, Ford Pierce takes part. Concerns and frustrations continue to mount regarding, I'm sorry, hold on. He said, it's a response to the state's new policies schools must follow when it comes to African-American history. Okay, it's a response to the state's new policies schools must follow when it comes to African-American history. And Pastor Johnson went on to say, quote, and for others to sit in seats of power, elected officials to sit in seats of power, and then regulate for us what we can and cannot teach. We felt that that was kind of disrespectful, and as I said, condescending. But I'm thankful because it became a call. It became a call to action and allowed us to do honestly what I think we should have been doing all along. Okay, we should have never stopped teaching our history. We should have never stopped teaching our history. And I totally agree with this. Okay. Yes, the history of African Americans needs to be taught in every school across the country. And this is something that Dr. Carter G. Woodson said as well. Okay, who co-founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, September 9th, 1915 in Chicago, who created Negro History Week, the second week in February in 1926. Okay, so I agree with that, but at the same time, there are things that we can do and don't have to ask permission. Okay, so we can teach this. Hold on just a second. So there are things we can do at the same time and don't have to ask anybody's permission, while we push the State Department of Education, push the governor, et cetera, to do the right thing. There's a lot of power that we have, a lot of control that we have, and don't have to ask anybody's permission to do it. Okay. There was a good article from the Washington Post on this also, and I want to go to, there's a quote that there's a quote I was trying to find. Oh, there was an article from there was a local news story from WTPV, I think it is. What was that story? Hold on, just bear with me. I got a number of articles here. This is, let me see. No, this NPR. This one right here. Hundreds of Florida congregations teaching courses on Black history in response to state measures. Yeah, this is from WPTV.com. WPTV.com. So if we look at, I want to pull this article up because there's a good quote in here. All right, hold on. Where is that piece? Let me pull up this article here. It's a Florida congregations teaching courses on Black history in response to state measures. This is from WPTV.com. Okay, this one right here. All right, now, Pastor Johnson was quoted in this one. Okay, yeah, Pastor Kenneth Johnson, okay. Pastor Kenneth Johnson at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church in Fort Pierce, Florida. And he said, and for others to sit in seats of power, elected officials to sit in seats of power and then regulate for us what we can teach. We felt it was regulate for us what we can teach. We felt that was kind of disrespectful and, as I said, condescending, but I'm thankful because it became a call to action and allowed us to do, honestly, what I think we should have been doing all along, he said. We should have never stopped teaching our history. And I totally agree. Now, Faith in Florida is a coalition of churches in the state, and they have a toolkit available now on Black history teachings. Studying is not limited to Zoom meetings, according to Pastor Johnson, who also pointed to Bible studies, Sunday school lessons, and sermons. He said, quote, we know we have Pastor Tony Drayton of St. James Missionary Baptist Church in Riviera Beach said, we know we have hundreds of churches now that are using it. We know we have hundreds of churches now that are using it, and we expect more to be using it because there is a real push for it now. Now, Pastor Johnson said to teach history now means a return to history of sorts. He said, historically, our Black churches have always been centers for information. Many of our churches, Friendship Missionary Baptist Church included, were once used as the learning place for our communities. When they had no schools, when they had no buildings, they would learn at the church. So now, ironically, history is repeating the need for that to happen again. So for those that don't remember, and we talked about this on the African History Network show numerous times. In July of 2023, the Florida Social Studies standards were released, and they released a new curriculum for 2023 that will include lessons on how slaves developed skills that could be used for personal benefit, according to a copy of the state's academic standards reviewed by CBS News. CBS News has a good article on this as well. I read numerous articles on this. So, we talked about this a lot back in July and August. Now, the lessons in question fall under the social studies curriculum, African American Studies section, and will be taught to students in 6th through 8th grade, according to the state standards. The lessons for that grade level will include teachings on understanding the causes, courses, and consequences of the slave trade in the colonies, and instruction on the differences and similarities between serfdom and slavery, the curriculum says. Now, students will also be asked to describe, quote, the contact of European explorers with systematic slave trading in Africa, and look at the history and evolution of slave codes, and look at the history and evolution of slave codes. Take a look at the article from CBSnews.com entitled Florida's new Black history curriculum says slaves develop skills that could be used for personal benefit. Now, this caused a huge backlash in June, in July and August. We know Vice President Kamala Harris spoke in Florida to rebuke these social studies standards. And we know also months earlier, the AP African American Studies course, that curriculum was rejected by Governor Ron DeSantis and the Florida Department of Education as well. So you had all this taking place this year. And this is on top of the Stop Woke Act that Governor Ron DeSantis signed into law in 2022. And this is on top of a nationwide backlash regarding this anti-critical race theory movement, okay, which was largely spearheaded by Donald Trump. Okay, let me pull up this article here from CBSnews.com. All right, everybody, share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a heart on this article, on this broadcast, and be sure to register for the online history classes that I teach, as well as take advantage of our bundle pack of classes and online courses. Visit our website, TheAHNShow.com, TheAHNShow.com. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, so you can register for this full 12-week online history course. And I'm getting ready to, as soon as I finish this broadcast, we're going to jump in the class in my online school and start teaching class number 1. So these classes will be on Saturdays, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm running a little behind schedule today, so I had to get everything set up. But go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, scroll down the page. You'll see the second class that I teach, Black Resistance Movements, Christopher Columbus, the Haitian Revolution, and Black Power Movement, 1492 to 1968. We do that on Sundays, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So click right here to register for the second course. You can register for the course bundle for both classes on sale for $120. Click right here to register for the course bundle. This content is PG-13, so you can use this with your children also. I don't do a lot of cursing. It's nothing like that. It's a very visual class. So we have 200 slides in the PowerPoint presentation, video clips that we look at, book references, 80 to 100 articles. And then we have class number 1 of Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade. Click right here to register for that. And the class lesson plan is here for the full course. You can download the class lesson plan. Okay, so there's a ton of information that we cover in this class. I'm just giving you a brief overview. Okay, so have you all learned anything so far? How do you all like this type of information? And who still needs to register for this class? So when we scroll down, we look at some of the other content that we'll cover. We'll look at archaeological discoveries that keep causing the scientists and archaeologists and paleontologists to push the timelines back. And these are archaeological discoveries that show an African presence in parts of the world earlier than people thought. Okay, so There was one good article, Recap Humans Are 100,000 Years Older Than We Thought. This is from the New York Post. We'll look at the lost city. There were two lost cities of Egypt. One, dazzling Aten, which was discovered a few years ago, but then also Tanis Heraklion, which was discovered about 2013. Tanis Heraklion, the lost city of Egypt. Okay, so let's look quickly here at this article from CBSNews.com from July 21st, 2023. Florida's new Black history curriculum says slaves develop skills that could be used for personal benefit. And in this piece here, it says Florida's 2023 social studies curriculum will include lessons on how, quote, slaves develop skills, end quote, that could be used for personal benefit, according to a copy of the state's academic standards reviewed by CBS News. The lessons in question fall under the social studies curriculum's African American Studies section and will be taught to students in the 6th through 8th grades, according to the state standards. The lessons for that grade level will include teachings on understanding the, quote, causes, courses, and consequences of the slave trade, causes, courses, and consequences of the slave trade in the colonies, and instruction on the differences and similarities between serfdom and slavery. The curriculum says, now students will also be asked to describe, quote, the contact of the European explorers with systematic slave trading in Africa, end quote, and look at the history and evolution of the slave codes. Look at the history and evolution of the slave codes. The line about personal benefit is included as a, quote unquote, benchmark clarification, end quote, to a lesson that asks students to, quote, examine the various duties and trades performed by slaves, such as agricultural work, domestic service, blacksmithing, and household tasks like tailoring and painting. Now, the curriculum was approved by Florida's Board of Education on Wednesday, the week of July 21st. Vice President Kamala Harris called the lesson plan an attempt to gaslight students. She said, quote, they insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, and we will not stand for it, she said in a speech at Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated's National Convention in Indiana on Thursday. She said, quote, we who share a collective experience in knowing we must honor history in our duty in the context of legacy, there is so much at stake in this moment. Okay, now, and you have a tweet here by Vice President Kamala Harris as well. So there was, check out the rest of this article here from CBS News. Florida's new Black history curriculum says slaves develop skills that could be used for personal benefit. Okay, so this was part of the impetus of the Faith in Florida organization being formed and putting together this study guide to help teach African American history. Okay, now, if we look at, there was a good article that came out from the Washington Post on this topic. And this was an article that came out recently here. And let me go to this one. Now, this article from the Washington Post came out September 24th. Okay, so this is a couple months ago. Just a second, let me switch over to this one. And this article from the Washington Post is called After Florida Restricts Black History, Churches Step Up to Teach It. After Florida restricts Black history, churches step up to teach it. There's a few things here in this article that I want to highlight. So this is by Brittany Shamus, September 24th, 2023, from the Washington Post. And let's see here, just a second. Okay. I want to pick it up here where it talks about the toolkit. So Faith in Florida is a nonprofit coalition of religious institutions. They put together an 11-chapter toolkit, okay, an 11-chapter toolkit to guide the churches and suggest books, articles, documentaries, and reports covering the Black experience through what it calls the lens of truth, the lens of truth. Okay, let's go to let me find this. All right here. Okay, Faith in Florida put together 11-chapter toolkit to guide churches and suggest books and articles and documentaries, okay? The chapters featuring content for all ages cover a lot of ground. From one chapter is called From Africa to America. Another chapter is called Race, Racism, and Whiteness. Race, Racism, and Whiteness. Now, some faith leaders quickly signed up to use it, representing African Methodist, Episcopal, United Methodists, and other denominations, each committed to weave teachings on Black history into their sermons or Sunday school classes or Bible study sessions. That way, they'd be reaching parents as well as children. Now, the church's involvement harks back to the pivotal role many played in the struggle to end segregation and advance voting rights. Now, Lauren Lyons, a spokesperson for the Faith in Florida Coalition, said, quote, "There's always been that connection. There's always been that connection." And so we pretty much said that because of what's going on in the curriculum and what's going on in Florida right now, it's time we took back that power. It's time we took back that power. And I totally agree. It's past time they took back that power. Okay, now what is this doing here? Okay, so she said it's time they took back that power. And I totally agree. And it's past time they took back that power. But I'm glad that they're doing this now. Also, the African American Social Studies, the Advanced Placement African American Studies class, the curriculum is 200 pages plus. You can download that, and something that I said needs to happen is organizations can download that curriculum as well and use that to teach this history in our organizations. Okay. And that is, I think we have it. We have one of them right here. Let's look at this here. Now, this is the Florida Social Studies standards that was released in July 2023 right here. Florida State's Academic Standards, Social Studies 2023. Okay. So, and this is at Florida Department of Education.org. Okay. FLDOE.org, Florida Department of Education.org. So you can check this out. But I have the curriculum for the advanced placement African American Studies class, and I have that somewhere here in one of these tabs that's open. Just a second. Let's find that. That is where is that? Okay, we got to find that because you can download that one and use that in the curriculum also. Let me find that. This is I think you can get it right here. Adopt AP African American Studies. Learn about the courses. This is at apcentral.collegeboard.org. apcentral.collegeboard.org. And let's see here. I know I have this bookmarked in Firefox. Okay, yeah, it's right here. Okay, let's see. Here's the PDF of it. 294 pages. Okay, right here. AP African American Studies Operational Course Framework Project and Exam Overview, effective 2024-2025. AP African American Studies. Yep. Okay, this is it. 294 pages. This is at apcentral.collegeboard.org. So you can take elements of this and teach this in our community centers, churches, everything. Okay, so page 23, AP African American Study Skills. Let's see here. What is this? Okay, Unit 1, page 24, Origins of the African Diaspora. This unit is 5 weeks. They deal with what is African American studies, the African continent and varied landscape, population growth and ethno-linguistic diversity, maps showing the movement of Bantu peoples, languages, and technologies, Africa's ancient societies, image of Aksumite coin showing King Azana, circa 340 to 400, image of the Nok sculpture, circa 900 BCE, before the Common Era to 200, the Sudanic empires of Ghana, Songhai, and Mali, learning traditions, okay, the Sanjata story, glimpse of a Mandi epic. Okay, so then you have indigenous cosmologies and religion syncretism. Okay, they talk about Yoruba. They talk about Ifa amongst the Yoruba, culture and trade in Southern and East Africa, West Central Africa, the Kingdom of Congo. Okay, excerpt of letter from Nzinga Bemba to Portuguese King João III. They're talking about Queen Nzinga. dealing in the Congo, 1526, when letter from Nzinga. I think that was, let me see something. Hold on just a second here. That was 1626, but okay, they're talking about in dealing with King Alphonso. That's before Queen Nzinga 1626. This is, this is before that. Okay, I've got it. All right, yeah, Alfonso the First of the Congo. Okay, yeah, because Queen Nzinga was 1626. All right, now the image of triple crucifix, 16th to 19th century, kinship and political leadership, illustration of Queen Nzinga or Nzinga, 17th century, global Africans. Then they talk about what is African American studies. And so this takes you through the whole curriculum here. Okay. So you can create lessons from this. You don't have to teach the whole thing page by page, but you can create lessons from this. All right. So let me post this link here. All right, now I want to go back to the piece from WashingtonPost.com, because this was an article from September 24th, 2023. After Florida restricts Black history, churches step up to teach it. I've seen a few articles on this and some stories, but there should be a lot more coverage on this and encouragement, especially in African American media. Okay, there should be a lot more coverage on this and encouragement, I would think, in African American media. Because it's one thing to keep covering this story and talking about Governor Ron DeSantis, talking about the Florida Department of Education, and they're wrong, they shouldn't do this, etc. But here we have African Americans taking power back, taking some control of the situation, and implementing programs to teach our history. And this is not getting as much media coverage as Governor Ron DeSantis, as the Florida Department of Education, as their new social studies standards, and the outrage, the protest behind it, the marching behind it, all that. What these African-American churches are doing should get, I would say, just as much coverage as the protest against Governor Ron DeSantis and the Florida Department of Education. But sometimes I'm coming to realize that we only want history when white people tell us we can't have it. Sometimes we only want, things to deal with African American history or Black history when white people tell us we can't have it. Now, for many Black churches, discussing Black history isn't new, but formalizing it through a teaching pledge, toolkit, and dedicated lesson is. The idea came from the coalition's executive director, the Reverend Rhonda Thomas. She had been dismayed by the passage of the 2022 Stop Woke Act legislation championed by Governor Ron DeSantis, who is a failing 2024 presidential candidate. His presidential campaign is tanking, and rightfully so. And this policy coming from Republicans in Florida limits classroom discussion of race. Now, this past spring, as the state set about revising Black history education standards to conform to the law, Pastor Rhonda Thomas decided to take action. She would mobilize as many faith leaders as possible to teach, quote unquote, raw and real African American history from their pulpits. Raw and real African American history from their pulpits. Now, her resolve was only strengthened when the new standards were released this past summer, with a line mandating middle schoolers be taught, quote, how slaves develop skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. Now, Faith in Florida's website now greets visitors with a pop-up message imploring them to sign the pledge, quote, because Black history is American history, it declares. Okay, so read the rest of this article. And let me see, is there anything else in here I wanted to cover? Okay, if we look at page 4 of this article, while creating the toolkit, the members of a special task force had a few goals in mind. While creating the toolkit, the members of a special task force had a few goals in mind. They wanted to cover a time span from before slavery to modern times, including the Middle Passage, white supremacy, and race riots, the Black Panther Party, and what they called the criminal injustice system. We don't want to whitewash anything, said task force member Marlo Jones, a Faith in Florida organizer in Pasco County. We want to tell the truth. We want to tell the truth. The response since July has been overwhelming. As of this month, more than, this article came out September 24th, okay? So basically as of September 2023, there have been more than 260 religious institutions that have filled out a pledge to teach Black history. And it isn't just Black congregations responding. There are also synagogues, Catholic churches, and mosques, nor is it only in state houses of worship. Faith in Florida is now getting requests to build out an entire curriculum, something that Pastor Rhonda Thomas hopes to tackle in time for the second half of the school year. Quote, I had no idea it was going to go this far, end quote, she said. I had no idea it was going to go this far. Now, her church was among the first to get it started. Its initial foray was an early morning session taught by Pastor Rhonda Thomas and her son on a Saturday in August. Her husband, the Reverend Ranzer Thomas, amplified it during a Sunday service later that month. In a sermon centered on learning, leaning on faith in times of struggle, he wove in the year-long bus boycott in the mid-1950s in Montgomery, Alabama. So that was December 5th, 1955 through December 20th, 1956. And then he wove in Bloody Sunday on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. That was March 7th, 1965. A decade later, and the March on Washington, August 28th, 1963. Such historic moments, he told congregants, must now be taught by, quote, people like you and I. Quote, yes, there is a fight of wanting to remove history from the school, but who was the first teacher that you ever met? You will be reminded that this first teacher is at home. You will be reminded that this first teacher is at home. Okay, so check out the rest of this article. It's a very good article that gives an update on what's taking place in Florida. I think that there needs to be continuous articles written about this. And then as we go into Kwanzaa, and then African American History Month, well, Dr. King Day 2024, African American History Month 2024 as well. There should be a continuation of this. Juneteenth 2024, Marcus Garvey's birthday, August 17th, Fannie Lou Hamer's birthday, Malcolm X's birthday, all of this. So this should be something adopted, I think, across the country, this toolkit, okay? And you can add to it. I'm not saying you have to stay within the confinements of the toolkit, but this can be a starting point for a lot of people. Okay. If we look at their website here, and let's see here. If we look at their website, let's go to faithinflorida.com or .org. Okay, this is the website right here, faithinflorida.org. And there's a message from
of Faith in Florida.
Pastor Under Thomas right here also. But if we click here on Black History, right? Black History Everyday Pledge today. So you can click right there on the pledge. Then they have the 11 lessons. Black history, Black culture, and Black lives are currently under attack, from chattel slavery, lynching, and Jim Crow segregation to redlining the war on drugs, and mass incarceration, to voter suppression, the school to prison pipeline, and police brutality. The list of oppressions perpetrated against Black people in this country is endless. We continually find ourselves not just fighting against the systems that perpetuate these racist oppressions, but fighting against these same systems that want to erase this part of America's heinous past, especially in the state of Florida. So keep in mind, Florida is one of the first states to have felony disenfranchisement laws when Florida wrote their state constitution in 1868, and African Americans were 48% of the Florida population. So they were doing this. You lost your right to vote for life if you were convicted of a felony. They did this on purpose, and they were targeting crimes that they felt African Americans were more disproportionately predisposed to committing, or what have you. And they said they did this to prevent a Negro legislature. They feared African Americans having political power, so they were trying to suppress the vote. They didn't fear us exercising. They feared us voting and gaining political power and passing laws that white people then had to follow. And this is why I say we have to stop telling African Americans to exercise your right to vote. If you want to exercise, you go to the gym and work out. You don't vote for exercise, you vote for power. You vote for Black political power. You vote for policies that are beneficial to you, your family, and your community, and policies that are good for African Americans are good for America in general. Okay, now, if we look here at this briefly. So they talk about Africans in America, and these are books that they recommend. They Came Before Columbus by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr. I use Before the Mayflower in my classes. I use, instead of They Came Before Columbus, we may cite a couple of things from They Came Before Columbus, but I use Dr. David Imhotep's book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. I use that. That's a more up-to-date book. Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust, Slavery and the Rise of European Capitalism by Dr. John Henrik Clark. That's a book that I use. The Transatlantic Slave Trade and the Enslavement of Black Bodies. So they deal with that section. They recommend books here. Like Slave Breeding, Sex Violence and Memory in African American History. Also, they were her property. White Women as Slave Owners in the American South by Stephanie E. Jones Rogers. We use excerpts from her in the class. Okay. They recommend some documentaries also. They recommend slave narratives from the autobiography, Up From Slavery autobiography from Booker T. Washington to Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, from Frederick Douglass, one of his 3 autobiographies. Then you have personal accounts of fighting for freedom. That's another lesson. Okay. You have racial terrorism and civil unrest. So this deals with lynching in the Jim Crow South. Crusade for Justice, the autobiography of Ida B. Wells. You have Race, Racism, and Whiteness, Race, Racism, and Whiteness. The Social Construction of Race, Racism, and Critical Race Theory. Books, The Myth of Race, The Troubling Persistence of an Unscientific Idea by Robert Wald Sussman. Okay, so they list a number of books here. When Affirmative Action Was White, An Untold History of Racial Inequality by Ira Katz-Nelson. White by Law, The Legal Construction of Race by Ian, who is this? By Ian Haney Lopez, White by Law. This was a book that I saw, what's her name? The attorney. And I met her before. Man, what's her name? Hold on. I follow her on Instagram. She mentioned this recently. It'll come to me. I gotta. All right, I have to see what's her name. She was on CNN. Angela Rye mentioned this book recently in one of her videos on Instagram. Black Faith as Resistance, and then the Criminal Injustice System. Okay, so read the rest of this. So check this out at at faithinflorida.org, faithinflorida.org. All right. So I think that's going to do it. I'm out of time here. It's been hectic. If you like this type of information, be sure to register for the online history classes that I teach. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, so you can register for this full 12-week online history course. And I'm getting ready to, as soon as I finish this broadcast, we're going to jump in the class in my online school and start teaching class number 1. So these classes will be on Saturdays, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm running a little behind schedule today, so I had to get everything set up. But go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, scroll down the page. You'll see the second class that I teach, Black Resistance Movements, Christopher Columbus, the Haitian Revolution, and Black Power Movement, 1492 to 1968. We do that on Sundays, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So click right here to register for the second course. You can register for the course bundle for both classes on sale for $120. Click right here to register for the course bundle. This content is PG-13, so you can use this with your children also. I don't do a lot of cursing. It's nothing like that. It's a very visual class. So we have 200 slides in the PowerPoint presentation, video clips that we look at, book references, 80 to 100 articles, and then we have class number 1 of Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade. Click right here to register for that. And the class lesson plan is here for the full course. You can download the class lesson plan. Okay, so there's a ton of information that we cover in this class. I'm just giving you a brief overview. Okay, so have you all learned anything so far? How do you all like this type of information? And who still needs to register for this class? So when we scroll down, we look at some of the other content that we'll cover. We'll look at archaeological discoveries that keep causing the scientists and archaeologists and paleontologists to push the timelines back. And these are archaeological discoveries that show an African presence in parts of the world earlier than people thought. Okay, so there was one good article, Recap Humans Are 100,000 Years Older Than We Thought. This is from the New York Post. We'll look at the lost city. There were 2 lost cities of Egypt. One, dazzling Aten, which was discovered a few years ago, but then also Tanis Heraklion,